Hi, everyone, and welcome. Hi, everyone, and welcome to the COVID-19 vaccine show. I'm excited to welcome Dr. Mark Hayden. Dr. Mark, what's up?
Oh, so far things are fairly comfortable in the United States. This has
I'm
been
fairly comfortable. COVID's over.
well, that's what they would have you believe, but then it depends on the locality where you're at, and there's a huge difference between the different population exposures in the different localities.
They're not telling you that on
No, they don't. And you always have to ask yourself, why are you not getting the full story? And right
Well, if you
now,
watch CNN right now, there's COVID's done. There's no death count anymore, any of that stuff.
yes, and if you're interested in selling a hotel, or let's say you own a stadium, in the United States, now's the time to sell that stadium. Because hey, guess what? People may think that COVID's over. Hey, I'm getting a bargain. I'm buying a stadium at a very low cost. And the time to move some of these assets is going to be when people think that COVID's over. But guess what? If you go over to the Olympics is not having spectators at the end of July. And that there's a reason for that, because it's not going to be safe.
All right, so tell me what's going on.
Well, if you look at the original exposure rates, they were radically different depending on the type of countries and the type of lockdowns they did. Some of the countries had very stringent lockdowns and they had very tight social control. Some of those countries are like Vietnam, that was a kind of a semi-socialist, a socialist communist country, that they apparently had very, very, very few cases, less than a few hundred in the original coronavirus epidemic. But as a result of having a lockdown, very few people were exposed in Vietnam. So they had no exposure to the spike protein in the mild form. And we're going to call the original form, the first wave, a mild form. So in Vietnam, there was very, very little exposure. The population was very young, and none of the young people actually had hardly any exposure, because they did excellent diagnostics, they located the cases, and they stopped it from spreading. Here's the problem with that approach. The problem is that most of the population had no antibody defense whatsoever. Now, in the United States, we're not having a lot of cases right now. But there are two reasons for that. The number one reason is most people, probably about, what is the number of percentage of adults vaccinated? Total percentage
50%,
of the population.
50%, I'm hearing. 50%?
Yeah, let's just say 50%.
Yeah.
That is not how most people got their immunity. Most people in the United States got their immunity because they were exposed in one of the prior waves. They were exposed in low dose respiratory, low dose, and they had asymptomatic cases. And so really, people think that the vaccine companies saved them. And that's really nice government propaganda. That's good information for big pharma. And it helps give people the idea that, hey, my government saves me. That's really reassuring for them, but that's not the way things work in the United States. In the United States, if you have immunity, you likely got that immunity through exposure before you even got your shot. Remember, we didn't really start giving the vaccines until the end of the last wave. And so guess what? Far more people were exposed to low dose in their intestinal tract, accidentally inhaling it, and many people had very asymptomatic cases. So for every one known case, there were probably 3 to 5 or 6 or more unknown cases. In fact, the government doesn't try to even determine how many people got it through asymptomatic spread through symptomatic. So in the United States, guess what? Just like with the flu epidemic that came through year after year, the amount of the population that only about 20% of the whole population or minority of the population would get flu. That's because the other part of the population got exposed, but they were asymptomatic. Now, you heard this from many of the initial experts, people that were not bought and paid for by Big Pharma. And the beautiful thing about it was the initial waves were not all that deadly. If you look at the first wave and the second wave of coronavirus, they didn't kill middle-aged people. They didn't kill many young people. They killed people that were at the end of their life. That was the case 99% of the time. Of course, for the government to try to control the narrative and for certain political classes, they treated, and in order to try to take away your rights and get you to be under their control and under their thumb, they said, if you don't listen to us, you're all going to die, that type of mess.
Mhm.
But that wasn't true. It was never true. What you saw was a very mild coronavirus case that would attack mainly those older than 60 years old. Almost all the deaths, like the vast majority of deaths, were confined to the older than 60 age group, people with multiple diseases that were likely to die anyway. And even those, and actually the case count was inaccurate because they were doing far too many actual measurements of the multiplication factor on the PCR testing was not accurate, oftentimes oversensitized, wasn't standardized. So there was a ton of inaccurate information. But the reason why the United States did well was because it was spread, the initial mild coronavirus was spread throughout the United States in the first of several waves. Now, the reason why India is doing poorly and did poorly for a while is because they, with their hundreds of millions of cases, had mutations that are much more complex, and they got a worse variant. But even India now, it's clearing up. It's clearing up even in India, even though the rest of India is not vaccinated. How is that happening? Well, guess what? Natural exposure is occurring in this aerosolized virus in India. And so the population of India was exposed in a large part to a very mutated, very much more hostile form of coronavirus. But guess what? They didn't all die. Yes, a lot of people did die in India. Their death rate hit 4,000 people a day for a number of days. And each and every person is special. Each and every person has family and sisters. And, our hearts should go out to them. And
What are you saying, Mark?
That
That even any of the waves we should ignore, or just allow natural immunity to fix it?
let me tell you, people, here's the kicker. In the Indian variant began to strike the ages from 40 to 60. If that had been the variant that spread in the United States, the total death rate in the United States would have been much, much higher, probably about 2 or 3 times what it was. It probably would have been over 1 million, 1.5 million, 2 million. Now, bear in mind, there's like 350 million Americans. It's not, that doesn't stop, society completely, but it's very severe. And the number of death rates would have been much more severe. The impact on life expectancy would have been more impactful. So part of this, now we're getting into finger pointing blame. We have these supply side shortages in computer chips, in lumber in the United States.
Right.
We have lumber prices going up. We have shortages of all kinds of weird things, like what hamburger now is supposed to be. The supply chain was very stressed because people were sick for a while, and some of these things are starting to catch up. And the economy is now what, $5 or $10 million.
So what do you have to show for us to show today, Mark?
Okay, let's just look at what's going on. Let's go ahead and I'm sharing my screen with you right now, aren't I?
Right. Yes, you are.
Okay. One of the things that I like to do is to get people to look at world media. Don't just look at US
Okay.
corporate media. Get your information from around the world from multiple sources. You should be skeptical of all sources, but be especially skeptical of sources that want to take you for money. Now, one of the things we've never done on this show, Neil, we've never asked anybody for money.
Right.
We've never exploited, taken a dollar from anybody for this show. But I encourage people to study coronavirus from around the world and look at other viewpoints. That will help your understanding and help you build your knowledge base based on information from around the world. Let's look at what China, do you see this on here that China urges the US to explain its research at Fort Detrick? Let me give a word of comment about this. The US, what we are seeing now is not the weaponized version of coronavirus. It hasn't reached a weaponized potential.
Okay.
The weaponized version would kill about 80 or 90% of people probably within about 3 or 4 days.
Oh my.
Not, it wouldn't kill just 1% or less than 1% within 18 days. So there's a huge difference. Now, no country in the world, nobody has actually seen the weaponized version. The weaponized version is able to transmit as an aerosol. And instead of having just the toxic effect of a coronavirus multiplying out of control with a new spike protein, it has toxins in it. Now, can those types of viruses be created? Yes, they can. Is it important for the governments of the world, China, Russia, and Fort Detrick? Is it reasonable for them to develop defenses and to study viruses that can be weaponized? Absolutely.
Yes.
Coronavirus is new in that it is the first virus that can be aerosolized in the asymptomatic form. That means somebody walking up to you totally without symptoms, without a rash, can be exhaling virus. And that virus could contain DNA material that could be encoded for toxic proteins that could kill you within days. And yet, nobody has actually completely weaponized this program yet. Is it the duty of Fort Detrick to defend the American people from a weaponized version of coronavirus? Yes, it is. And but those types of discussions should be open discussions and transparent discussions.
Yeah, so let's
Fauci knew the CDC shut down the Fort Detrick lab. And back in 2019, the CDC had control and authority over Fort Detrick. They knew these issues were out there, but they never discussed them with the public because they were national security issues and they wanted to be top secret. Their excuse for not informing the American public was that they didn't want to inspire terrorists and make bioterrorism. The real people that want to make a weaponized virus, they're not idiots. They're going to figure this stuff out on their own anyway. What you need out of good government is honesty and transparency. And you didn't have a lot of honesty and transparency. And because the government wasn't honest with people about the weaponization potential of an aerosolized virus, guess what? People learn not to trust their government. In the United States.
Yeah, so let's check out this video. Yes, check out this video.
And so, hey, guess what? The reason why people don't trust the CDC is because the CDC doesn't trust its own people. That's right. It doesn't trust the American people with the full story. So are places like Fort Detrick, is the Chinese research programs, are there rational reasons for having them? Yes. Do I think that anybody in any government weapons program deliberately loosed the coronavirus? I do not. Can that coronavirus eventually be mutated? And will it be a long-term threat that will replace flu? Absolutely. I don't think you're ever going to go back to the days you're not going to be able, under the current conditions, to eliminate coronavirus. It will continue to mutate into more virulent strains. One of the big issues by this winter will be how much immunity will the people who were vaccinated still have a year? The people that were IM vaccinated, how long will that immunity last? I suspect that natural immunity, where it grew in the intestinal tract, will last much farther, much longer than the IM immunity.
Okay. All right.
Now,
let's definitely play this video. Yeah.
Okay. So look, here we go. Look, if we look at this guy from China, and it doesn't make me a communist just because I go to Chinese foreign information. But
there's a way you share the screen, Mark, to do that. So just explain what the video is saying. Yeah.
Look, that's going to go on. And I encourage all people to understand these issues. Do you want to book your vacation while you can? Yes, you should, in the United States. Are we going to have another wave probably this fall? Probably. Will it be reduced because we already have exposure? Yes. There are similarities between the spike protein, and probably much of that will carry over to the people who have natural exposure. The biggest risk to the United States is people that were not exposed, who are totally dependent on the intramuscular shots to prevent transmission or to prevent their give them long-term immunity. That's not well understood. Now, as on this program, we presented ideas on a modified attenuated live virus oral vaccine that should be coming out, and that is by far the safest, easiest to administer vaccine for large countries. Now, if you look at Vietnam has gone the Sinopharm, the Chinese vaccine that is IM, and good for the Chinese and good for Vietnam. I mean, they're just looking for short-term solutions. But is coronavirus here to stay? Will it continue to cause problems? Yes. And is this a temporary lull in between waves? It is. But is this over? No, it's not over. And we are likely to see continued mutations. And the idea of herd immunity, here's what's funny. China's target for vaccinations was 80%. They never got there. Herd immunity, the more the virus becomes aerosolized, the better it is. The higher the herd immunity has to be. So as the virus becomes better aerosolized, your herd immunity ratio has to be upwards of 90 to 95%. That is almost impossible to obtain without low dose exposure of almost everybody in the environment. And if immunity decreases among the older population or the people that are vaccinated, then that is going to have a huge impact later this winter, and you'll still get waves coming through. So, all these are considerations. Now, is this anything to get upset over? It's not. And, I want to end this meeting on a closed note. We do these meetings. Neil, you and I do these meetings. I do these meetings. I enjoy them. I did something with coronavirus that most people wouldn't do. I swallowed it while it was alive, deliberately. I enterically coated it. I have a website, antivirusair.com, which went into detail about the aerosolization, how coronavirus becomes an aerosol. And on that website, it actually discusses how you can exhale charged virus. That was the best, and still is the best technical public document about how coronavirus is aerosolized. I applied for patents in both China and the United States. I have no delusions that I will become rich off coronavirus. I don't ask people for their money. The physicians in the community should be informed about how viruses like coronaviruses are aerosolized. They should pursue knowledge. They should be leaders in their community. The community doesn't need the local bioweapons center to be the experts on bioweapons. The community needs your community physicians to understand coronavirus, how it's aerosolized, how it can be mutated, how it can be a potential biological warfare agent. We haven't seen that biological warfare agent because we're not getting 80 and 90% death rates. That's what's possible within 3 days. So guess what? We haven't seen the biowarfare applications of coronavirus. What we have now is just a freak event. I don't want our listeners to feel helpless. It's true that there are enough nuclear weapons to kill many millions of people. But we need to love people. We need to love the people in China. We need to love the people in India. We need to love our enemies. We need to care about them. And when the virus is over there, we need to track the virus in India and in Japan, where the Olympics are. We need to open our hearts, and the physicians in your community should not be muzzled or threatened or coerced by the local CDCs. We need healthcare should be at the local level by your local physicians. Your local physicians are very smart people in every country. They're very capable. And if you'll tap into those people, they can be very resourceful. So the take-home message is today that I'm alive today and you're alive because we have a purpose. We have to make the most use of every day. Coronavirus is not gone, and there are so many threats to our lives. But ultimately, my day to die is already determined.
Right.
I don't have to live in fear.
Exactly.
I'm going to die. And what I want to do with the days that I have alive, and Neil, I hope what you do with the days you have alive, be kind to your family.
Yes.
Be kind to your children. Know one day, Neil, you won't be alive for your family. You'll just be a memory for your children. I'll be a memory for my children soon, and a memory for my wife. I hope I outlive her. I'm older than her.
Right.
So that's okay. But I've got to do today what I can to be productive.
Okay.
And you know, I number my days. I make my days count. And we want the same. If you're a listener, realize that ultimately fate and destiny are all in God's hands. We need to learn and help our friends, our families, and be concerned about our fellow man. We need to trust in science, but we need to always keep our eyes open to the corrupt influence in their information stream. And above all, we need to look close to home, to our friends, our families, the people we interact with every day, and share love and share positive ideas and be a positive influence on them. And Neil, I want you to have a great weekend this weekend.
You too.
And if you're watching this, I want you to have a great time. Do not live in fear. Educate yourself. Go to antivirusair.com website if you get a chance, and make the most of every day. Thank
Awesome.
you. Thank you. Neil.
Okay. All right. So I appreciate it, Mark. That was the COVID-19 vaccine show. Take care.